stable of hosts grow uninhibited. In this genre, that's an accomplishment which many in alternative radio are striving for, but are left consistently wanting. This is all made possible because of you, the listener, that tunes in live every night, who can tell the difference that independent thinking makes. The best way to show our appreciation is to thank you and continue to allow our listeners the ability to download the archives of all the shows free of charge on iTunes, Podbean, and SoundCloud. No monthly fees, no cost to download individual shows, and none of the constant hassling for donations. That's the uprnradio.com difference. So stick around, there's much more to come with new shows on the way. For now, feel free to join your favorite show live in the Pal Talk chat room, easily accessible off uprntalkradio.com, and share the experience of listening live with other listeners from around the world. So thanks for listening, and thank you for being a part of the uprntalkradio.com family of listeners.
Summon the spirit of Halloween early this August 6th and 7th at the Pasadena Convention Center in Pasadena, California, with Scare LA, Season of the Witch, hosted this year by the Queen of Halloween herself, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Join Christina George from Paranormal Connections, Russ McCamey from McCamey Manor, along with 20,000 frightful horror fans for an epic weekend featuring scare industry masterminds, a massive show floor, cosplay, and classes. Add to that major reveals of the most anticipated theme park entertainment from home haunts, movies, television, and more. Test your nerves in the fog. Dozens of haunt mazes, virtual reality experiences, ghost stories, escape rooms, and roaming monsters are sure to make you scream. This year, Scare LA opens its first ever full-sized original haunt attraction, Blood Offering, designed by some of Southern California's greatest scare artists. Paranormal's Christina George will be broadcasting live from the event. Come join her for an experience not to be forgotten. Book your tickets today at scarela.com. This show is not to be missed.
Hello, you're listening to United Public Radio. I'm Joe Montaldo, host of News on the Flip Side. Check us out every Saturday night, 6 to 9 p.m. Central Time. Hi, I'm Joe Montaldo, and you're listening to United Public Radio.
Metaphysical. The dark side. of Mabus.
Oh, I'm stoked. I'm ready. This is awesome.
Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night. You're listening to United Public Radio, 107.7 FM New Orleans. I got a couple of books to plug. Let me see. First one, Tom Clancy's Op Center, Scorched Earth by Tom Clancy and Steve Pizanick. Written by George Galdorissi. Having trouble with these names there. From St. Martin's Griffin, that's a new Tom Clancy book. Yeah, he's dead. I'm not sure how they pulled that one off, but hey, apparently they did. So,
Ghost Riders in the Sky.
That's right. Speaking of dead authors, we also have Robert E. Howard, The Weird Tales of Conan the Barbarian, from Dover Publications. Now, I love me some Conan, so The Weird Tales of Conan the Barbarian. I've never actually read. I just got this, but I haven't. I have a bunch of the Conan books. I've never actually read them. I need to read them because I think I love them. Just never got around to it. But I love the movies and stuff. And then I saw that movie Once Upon a. Gosh, I always mess up the name. Some movie where Vincent D'Onofrio plays Robert Howard and Renee Zellweger's in it with him. It's called, I forget, but you can look up something about Once Upon a Time, or I always forget. But anyway, he plays the writer that wrote Conan, and he's also having letters back and forth with Lovecraft during the whole movie, so it was pretty good. Another book, Joe R. Lansdale, By Bizarre Hands. Joe R. Lansdale wrote the script for Cold in July and Happen Leonard, the Sundance Channel television series. It's a bunch of short stories, also by Dover Publications. Talking Stick, Peacemaking as a Spiritual Path, a Practice for Deeper Relationships, Personal Growth and Connection to Nature, by Stefan V. Bayer. This is from Bear and Company Books. It's a book on shamanism, and that's called Talking Stick. Just came out. One more book, and then I got to plug the UFO conference. We'll be done. The Presidents in UFOs, A Secret History from FDR to Obama, by Larry Holcomb. Forward by Stanton Friedman. And this is by St. Martin's Griffin. I think I was trying to get this dude on the show. I'll have to try again. They sent me his book, but I don't think he ever emailed me. The Presidents in UFOs, A Secret History from FDR to Obama, Larry Holcomb. It's a good one, JoJo. Need a guest there, JoJo. Also, I want to plug the 26th Annual International UFO Conference and Film Festival, February 15th through the 19th. Register before October 1st to take advantage of our super early bird rate. And you can visit ufocongress.com or call 1-877-836-0110. All right, and then one show I want to talk about for a second. There's a great show on Netflix. I'm watching it. I'm about to start the 4th episode. Stranger Things, The Return of Winona Ryder. Yes.
Yeah.
It's only been like in Star Trek or something before. She vanished when she on her weird klepto shoplifting thing. Not judging, it happens. But but she's back. It's an 80s. It's only 8 episodes the first season, but it's a throwback to 80s supernatural movies like Poltergeist. There's a little bit of E.T., X-Files in there. It's really good. Like, it's amazingly good. Definitely a throwback to the 80s.
Well, the X-Files was in the 90s, so.
Was it? Yeah, I mess up decades sometimes. It's hard being a vampire. But nonetheless, it's really good, and it does have that X-Files vibe to it, for sure, no doubt about it. I love the X-Files. I've seen them all, even the 10th season, even though the 10th season was kind of terrible. But there's a couple of good episodes in there, like the shape-shifting lizard dude. That was pretty good in the new season. I have the box set of X-Files. Love it. But I was kind of a little disappointed in the new season because it was like they kept showing all these weird clips of Fox News. It's like Fox News was trying to advertise in it or something. It was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like Fox was trying to, it's by Fox. It was on Fox. So, of course, it just seemed like there was some weird Fox News media stuff in it. It was kind of creepy. I don't know what the deal with that was. But, real quick, our upcoming guest. Forgot to open that folder. Let me see here. Let me see. Look at my guests. I know them mostly, but I like to just read them. July 22nd, Gordon White, Chaos Magician from Britain. When we're talking about chaos.
We've got plenty to choose from, so.
That's right. Wrote a book called The Chaos Protocols and Starships. Runs Rune Soup. Keegan Reed, July 29th. Sasquatch, his buddy Christopher Jacobs is going to be with him. August 5th, Stephen Lancaster. August 12th, Ken Gerhard. Buddy Ken Gerhard, lead singer of Bozo Porno Circus, and also starred in the History Channel's Missing in Alaska. August 19th, Brennan Storr. Paranormal, a bunch of Lillowin guests coming up. Rich Newman, tonight's guest from Lillowin. And that's it. I've read enough. July, the rest of July, and August. I'm working on a guy that did that DVD. I'm talking to him now. Did Montauk Chronicles. I'm trying to fit him in somewhere, but he did a movie called Montauk Chronicles. Talking to him now on Facebook. We'll see if we can fit him in at some time. He did a DVD documentary called Montauk Chronicles, and now he's working on a Bigfoot documentary, which should be kind of a weird change from Montauk to Bigfoot. Interestingly enough, that show, the Winona Ryder show, Stranger Things, they originally were going to call it Montauk, but changed the name to Stranger Things. I guess needed something a little bit more marketable. All right. Let me see. How you doing, Debbie?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, sort of. Good to have you here. We got Wham, my co-host. She's here. She's here with us.
Hi.
And Debbie Chestnut's book is Something Wicked, A Ghost Hunter Explores Negative Spirits. Let me see. Oh, no. What are they barking at? Dogs barking. My brother must be home. But nonetheless, Debbie, what got you originally into the paranormal? What started you on the path?
I think what started me on the path was always being able to communicate with spirits and see them ever since I can remember. And then when I was in college, one of my psychology professors was a parapsychologist. And I used to hunt with him, and that's what really got me into it. I was hooked. That was it.
And you had some experiences when you first started that were pretty memorable?
My first ghost was a spirit named Nathaniel who lived in my aunt's house on the second floor, which was just used for storage. And I was about 5 or 6 years old. And he was like my best friend. I mean, we spent hours up there, and we'd talk and, play, and it was awesome, And then, unfortunately, my dad sold the house when my aunt died, but I got the house back when I got married through some really bizarre circumstances. And the first thing I did was run up the stairs to see if Nathaniel was still there. And the second I made it to the top of the stairs, I got a big hug from Nathaniel, which is kind of like walking through Jell-O. And eventually, I had him go into the light, eventually.
So when you talk to him, I'm always curious, when you heard him, was it audio, like clairvoyance in your head, or did you hear it like you would a normal person?
It was mostly telepathy. We just talk at the speed of thought, I guess, is what you'd call it. It was easier for him. It used less energy for him. And he had been alive in the 1800s and the Victorian times, and he had been developmentally challenged, and back in those times, they had kept those people hidden away, and so he was used to having to be quiet, and he was always afraid he was going to get into trouble, so it was more comfortable for him to communicate telepathically.
And why do you think he didn't move into the light? Why do they stay behind, so to speak?
Well, in Nathaniel's case, he had been so ridiculed in life, he was afraid if he went into the light, he would be ridiculed in death. And it took me a long time to convince him that once he went into the light, he would be made whole. And finally, he went. And then the last time I saw him was the day we were moving out of the house. And I was the last one there, and I was walking through to make sure everything was gone. And I turned around to walk out of my daughter's room, which was on the second floor, and he appeared in the doorway, and he was completely healthy and whole, and he just said, "Thank you," and I said, "You're welcome," and that was kind of it. You know, see you whenever.
Some of my first experiences were after my dad died. I had a person made out of light visit me, and it was just standing on the cloud tops, like Highway to Heaven or something, and a friend saw it with me. It was just like a person standing there made out of light. Then a few years ago, I seen two beings of light just fly out of my house into the heavens, and I believe part of that is because when I was 17, I had cancer, and I've been healed from that, and I think it kind of opened up my senses. But in any of your studies, have you ever come across any beings of light?
I've come across one in particular. In fact, he kind of saved me. I think I was about, 15 or 16, and I woke up for some reason in the middle of the night, and I was being attacked by something very negative, very dark, and at 15 you really don't know what to do, so I kind of, asked the divine power for help, and my whole room filled up with this bright light, but it didn't hurt your eyes to look at it. And once this light showed up, whatever was after me let me go. And then this light kind of formed the outline of a man. And he came over to my bed, and he just kind of hugged me, almost like a hug. And I'd never felt such unconditional love and acceptance, and I felt safe. And this voice said, go back to sleep. You'll be fine. We'll take care of you. And that was the times I saw myself.
So it's more of a force that intervenes for good on some level?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it sounds almost like a Patronus. Getting rid of the bad stuff.
Maybe.
A Patronus?
Yeah, in Harry Potter, the essence of light that you project out to get rid of the dementors.
A Patronus.
This wasn't projected. This was
right.
It came out of nowhere.
Obviously.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere, and it left just as fast. But, I felt safe.
So what about possessions? Have you come across some cases with possessions?
I haven't run across one with a person possessed. I usually get in way before that happens. I'm usually called in way before that happens. I mostly go in when they're in the stage of oppression or repression, when they're being influenced but they're not quite possessed yet. I've only had one case of human possession, and there was a team in Houston that's very good at handling those things, and they handled that one for me. 'Cause I don't handle human possessions. I'll do a possessed building. I'll go where there are demons, and I'll get rid of them. But I'm not going to mess with someone's life like that, I don't feel that confident doing that on a person.
Yeah, that's some pretty hardcore stuff. I just saw that Conjuring 2 where they go to the infield haunting, and Britain, the Warrens go there, and it takes, of course, that movie over-dramatizes everything, but we've had Andrea Perrin on the show, who the first movie, Conjuring, was based on her story. But, and of course, in the second one, they go to London to do the infield haunting, and there's a a lot of possession going on there, but there's also a BBC version of that I just got a hold of. I need to watch. It's supposed to be pretty good, but I've just always wondered what those possessions are like, really, because in movies they over-dramatize everything,
Right.
So I'm always.
I mean,
seen videos.
I'm sure they're bad, but I don't think. I mean, I'm sure they're horrible, but I think Hollywood kind of over-dramatizes.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry. Dog, the toy.
Sorry, I got him here too.
Well, I've witnessed possessions, actual possessions. I've been in the presence of them, and there are different types,
Right.
And the ones that I witnessed were possessions where whatever was possessing the individuals was claiming it was part of a religious ceremony, and I mean a Christian religious ceremony, and it was claiming that it was on the side of good, but it was clearly not. I mean, I've actually seen more positive trances that were for the good. You know what I mean? And so it was that it was very clear that it was not, and it was. I mean, not only because of what the person was doing and saying, but just sort of the way in which the body was being treated and the way in which it was kind of contagious in a way. Usually, my experience with the more positive kinds of like trance work is that stuff tends to not be contagious. It's very contained. The entities, energies have respect for their human container, and it's just different. I mean, you can tell when you. I know that when I saw that, or when I was in the presence of that at the time, because of who I was in high school. At the time, I really didn't know exactly what to do with it. I mean, I couldn't really do anything for that person. But I remember I really did some interesting sort of. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay, my phone just did something weird. I really did some interesting kind of instinctive things to protect myself.
Yes.
And so and I have been violently attacked by non-physical entities before.
Yes.
And I've had to sort of learn my own techniques of protection. See, I grew up with a father who was a religious extremist, and he has, even though he believes something different about what he does, he has had a long history of attracting dark things to him. And so I had to deal with that kind of stuff when I was quite young, and nobody was there to teach me how to do it.
Right.
So,
it's like instinct takes over.
Right. I wasn't really always successful. I mean, I'm not, the first few times, you come out of it feeling a little bit like you don't know if you've been damaged or not, what I mean?
It's trial and error. I mean, it's still trial and error. With me, it depends on the entity. It depends on how powerful it is.
Right.
I mean, what works with one entity might not work with another, as far as protection.
Right. So what got you started in working specifically with, I mean, obviously you don't work just with negative stuff, but it sounds like you specialize.
I do specialize in that because I know where these people are coming from. I was harassed by a demon for 5 years, and it took me that long to figure out really how I was going to get rid of it. We went back and forth. I did everything wrong. I'd never encountered one before, and my curiosity took over, and I wanted to learn everything about it.
Right.
So I, keep going to this location, kind of poking it with a stick to see how it would react, which is the total wrong thing to do, by the way.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Totally wrong thing to do. But I felt I needed to learn, because how can I help more people with these entities, these horrible creatures, if I don't learn everything I can about them, how they react, how they behave, what they do. You know, I have to say, for a demonic, it played fair. And to some extent, it gave me warnings. I ignored them. Then it started to physically attack me at home. And then I drew the line. That was it. It's like, okay, you have to go. And, you know, I didn't have a lot to draw on, so I had to kind of come up with something on my own that would get rid of it. And we had a little showdown, and I went to get rid of it. I was right there. I could have done it, and I stopped. And it said, "Why did you stop?" And I said, "Why didn't you get rid of me?" I said, "Because if I get rid of you, or if I kill you, if that's even possible, that makes me no better than you, and I'm way better than you." And now I wish I would have zapped it. I wish I would have taken it out now, but I didn't. And, you know, every once in a while, like twice a year, he still pops in to let me know he's around. But I'm not afraid of him anymore. Because I think he knows that I can get rid of him now. I'm stronger.
So what, based on this, what is your definition of what a demon is? I mean, there's the kind of classical...
Right, you know, and I'm not real fond of the word demon, but I don't know what else to call it. You know, and it's a word that most people understand.
Right.
You know, I think of a demon as an inhumanity that's unbelievably evil. You know, they have rules amongst themselves, and they do have a rule, like they have to be invited into your life some way, and they take that very literally. Like if someone moves into a house that has an entity like this in it, the fact that they don't leave once they figure out that there's something there, that's all the invitation it needs, and then they get into trouble. You know, they're deceptive. They can appear as someone they knew that, you know, has passed. It's children. They'll do anything just about to get accepted. And once they're accepted, it's over. You know,
and what is it that they want?
You know, I have a hard time with the Christian version, I guess, that says, you know, they're trying to turn you away from God. I don't think that. I'm honestly not sure. They want control, maybe. They want power. Maybe they want to make you do something you normally wouldn't do. I know they started to go after my friends. They find your deepest fear, your deepest, darkest fear that you've never told anyone, and then they prey on it.
Right.
And
they
know
that was my experience, yeah.
Yeah, and they know what that is instinctively. You know, and they started to go after some of my friends. So I did the second dumbest thing I've ever done in my life is I went to the house and this thing was in, because the house was empty. It was a pre-Civil War mansion. And I said, quit going after my friends. If you need to go after someone, come after me.
No, that was sort of...
That was really dumb. You can say it. So dumb.
Hello.
Yeah, you know, but hindsight's always 20/20. I'd never run into this entity before, this type of entity before. In fact, before I ran into this, I didn't even believe in demons. I didn't believe in these things, and that changed real fast. So, you know, I'm dealing with my whole belief system rocked, and now I have this unbelievable evil entity I'm dealing with. And, yeah, I did everything wrong. And, you know, in a way I'm glad I did, because now I can help other people and I can tell other people this is what you don't do. You know, trust me on this, been there, done that. You know, one of the things he did, it was about 4 years ago. I was at a gas station, and it was raining. And you know how they have the canopies over the gas stations? At least up here they do.
Right.
And the rain was dripping down on my windshield while I was pumping gas. And I get back in my car, and I look at my windshield, and written in the rainwater on my windshield was his name.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah, and I went, oh, that's good. That's good. Nice job. Yeah, I know you're here. You know, so I find that if I don't show fear, you can't show fear, which is really hard, but you can't show fear. And so every once in a while he still pops in. I'll feel his energy. Just let me know he's here. And I'm like, yeah, I know you're here. And then he goes. You know, because they, I think they mark you in some way, you know, and it's just their way of telling you that I can find you no matter where you go. You've got no place to run. There's nowhere you can hide where I can't find you. And it's an intimidation tactic, and it's like, fine, because I know how to get rid of you now. Bring it on. So, you know, that's kind of where I'm at with him. He was a lower prince. He commanded 30 legions of demons, allegedly. And there's 10,000 demons per legion, so, you know, do the math. And that's what a demonologist friend told me about him once I learned his name.
Oh, I see. Oh, so he gave you a known name.
I didn't have his name. He appeared to me one day to try to scare me, and I remembered what he looked like, and I talked to my friend who was a demonologist, and he told me who he was. So then I'd go over and I'd call him out by name. And once you have their name, people say you should never say their name.
Well, you should never say. You should never. Well, the idea is you should never say their name if they're not around.
Yeah. See, I don't buy that. You know, I think knowing their name, because I think knowing their name gives you just a little bit of power over them, because the name is usually the last thing they'll give up. So I think knowing his name and being able to call him out by name, I just feel in my mind that gives me an edge, that we're kind of leveled the playing field a little bit. You know, my advantage, I think, is that I can feel the energy, and I know what that type of energy feels like. So I know it's coming.
Well, one of my things is I think they're demons, but where does discernment play a role? Because, I mean, if you look throughout history, how many times have crazy psycho-religious people blamed demons and devils and burned witches and God knows Indians and all kinds of crazy stuff? And then you have people, of course, that also will blame demons and the devil for every little freaking part that happens. So I'm not saying there are demons, but I'm saying where does discernment play a role? Because you have all that madness, and then plus you probably really have demons. So it's like, that's what I'm trying to figure out with. That's what my problem with it, I guess.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out. I mean, you know, what I've found doing this for 30 years is that when you go into someone's house or a place of business, or, I mean, I've done churches, I've been everywhere. When you go into one of those places, you have to operate within the faith of the people that live or work there. You can't operate in your own personal beliefs, because then if you do that, no matter what you do, it's not going to work. Because the people that live in that space or occupy that space, the living people, don't believe in what you're doing. So if you operate within those people's faith, their belief system, 9 times out of 10 it's going to work, because they believe in what you're doing, and that's what you need. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, definitely.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, when it comes to, I've seen some ghosts a few times. Like, I've seen Native Americans completely dressed up in all their stuff from, like, the olden golden days or whatever.
Right. Isn't that the coolest thing? I've seen them, too. That's awesome. I love that. And,
well, why do you think they're, like, a Civil War ghost? Why is it still wearing that stuff? That's what I wonder too. Why are they still wearing those clothes?
Well, it depends on whether the entity is an intelligent entity or if it's residual energy.
Yeah, like
I think a lot of the ghosts you see on battlefields and stuff, I think a lot of that is residual. So of course they're going to appear.
Like psychic memory energy or something.
Yeah, it's like a tape recorder, a video recorder playing over and over again on a loop. I define it as if that entity tries to interact with the living in any way, then you're dealing with an intelligent entity, meaning that it's a spirit or ghost, whatever. But if it makes no attempt, it does the same thing all the time, and it doesn't try to interact with the living or acknowledge the living in any way, then my guess is that 9 times out of 10 you're dealing with a residual energy.
Yeah, I've heard stories like I think it was Haunted America or one of those books or something where they see the Civil War stuff and then it's like some kind of, I don't know if it was something that holds the memory, like some crystal or something, I can't remember, but something about like replaying the...
Oh, anything forest. There was a building out east. It used to be a Civil War hospital, and they tore the building down, but they used the big blocks in the basement, and they moved them and used them as a foundation in another building across town. And people started seeing in the new building Civil War soldiers walking through the building because all that energy, residual energy, was stored in those stones.
Yeah.
Anything porous, stone, wood, that all absorbs the energy. It's got to go somewhere eventually.
So where do your beliefs fit in this? Are you Christian? What are your spiritual beliefs?
I draw from a lot of spiritual beliefs. I use some Christian, some Wiccan, some pagan, a little bit of Druid. I study a lot of different religions, and I pull what works for me, and I kind of discard the rest. So one of my friends said I was a Christian pagan. So
that's kind of what I do. I grew up in the South, but I love shamanism, and lately I've been reading a lot about the Norse shamanism and stuff. And I've been trying to. It's like I can't get rid of the Christianity thing. I keep trying to, but it won't go away.
Well, my mentor was from Wales, and he was pagan and Wiccan. So I learned a lot of those ways from him. And then, I was raised in the Christian faith, so it's hard to get rid of. It's ingrained into your head since you're born.
Definitely.
But some of it applies. You just got to take what works for you and from different religions and discard the rest. That's how I think about it.
My dad was a Baptist preacher, so.
Oh.
He was crazy. And mean. But I did pretty good. My biggest thing is, like, I can still read the Bible and find some peace from it, but there's always this weird part of me that's afraid suddenly one day I'm going to wake up and be Ted Cruz or something. So.
Oh, I don't think so.
No, I don't think that's not how that works. I mean, Ted Cruz is Ted Cruz, just with or without the Bible. I mean, if he would still be Ted Cruz if he was like in an Islamic country and happened to be, been raised a Muslim. He would be a Muslim Ted Cruz. You know what I mean? I mean, he would just be who he is.
Right. I mean, for me, when I need to turn everything off and I need peace, even though I wasn't raised Catholic, there's a Catholic church by us, and they have a separate building that's an oratory, and it's where people go in and you can pray, and they have the candles, and there you can light the candles. And when I need peace, and I need quiet, and I need to feel safe, that's where I go. Just for 10 minutes of peace, just to turn it off.
Right.
Everyone has their place. Where they feel safe and they feel secure, and they can just shut it off for 10 minutes. Which sometimes is all you need. You just need to shut it off for 10 minutes. But I will say that after going through that with this entity, this negative entity, the reason I don't think their goal, or at least this one's goal, is to turn you away from God, because when I came out of this, my faith was even stronger than it was before.
Yeah, I mean, my experience actually with the ones that I've encountered is that they actually, I mean, the way I was raised, I just found that it wasn't what my experience at all. The entities that I've encountered, they believe in God. I mean, they know all about that, and so for me, the easiest thing, whatever God is,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, the easiest way to block them was just simply to really affirm that in myself and affirm that belief, and I stopped one attack dead by just confronting the entity and saying, and you believe it too,
right?
So what's up with you? And boy, it stopped it just like that. It was like, it's like it's the one thing in common you and I have, and after that, they can't touch you. Because what they're trying, at least my experience, what they're trying to do is just simply, I don't know, feed on your fear or something. Feed on your sense of being separate. Feed on your sense of being vulnerable. And it's not that they're trying to not. They're trying to. I mean, they're trying to make me believe that love isn't enough or something.
I understand what you mean, because I felt that way too myself. They know all about God, whatever God is. They know all about him, but they feed on fear. Fear actually can make them stronger.
Yeah, well,
that's why I tell people, look, here's the deal. I know it's hard not to be afraid, but fear's the enemy right now, because that's what they want. They want you to be afraid, because then you're vulnerable. And that's why they go after your deepest, darkest fear, the thing you dread the most. That's why they hone in on it, because they're trying to instill that fear. Fear makes you weak.
Well, yeah, and it sort of opens all of that, energy up. I mean, the tradition that I use, and Jeffrey knows this, is the Sufi tradition, and there's, you've probably heard of the jinn, and that's and that's that's the way these beings are defined. And of course, there are different types of jinn, but there are a couple, 2 or 3 subsets of jinn that are specifically known to be, these really negative beings. And the part of what I've experienced too is if they can elicit some kind of strong emotion in you, like anger or fear, or even intense and almost anything obsessive, like sexual lust or anything that's just way too intense, even a really intense kind of obsessive interest in them, which some people kind of fall into. When you were talking about going and poking them.
Yeah. So dumb.
Anything like that, any strong emotion like that, it's like they find a way of kind of slipping in.
Yeah, because
they can
to them,
fears.
Yeah, because to them, you've welcomed them into your life. You've acknowledged them. It's a vicious circle. Vicious circle. And, while, obviously demonic hauntings and possessions, they're very rare, they do happen. And, I find that houses that have a lot of chaos in them, like, if the house is super messy, or if there's drug abuse, alcohol abuse, domestic abuse, any type of negative thing like that tends to draw them in more.
Yeah, because those emotions are flying around.
And those emotions are very powerful.
Right.
that energy from those emotions is very powerful. And it's going to act like a beacon, and it's going to draw them in eventually. You know.
So do you think there are demons that will make people try to, let's say, masturbate and feed off that energy?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I have those.
Oh, God, Jeffrey.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes, TMI.
My big thing is I've been single since January. I was with this Russian chick. She was good looking, but she was crazy. But it didn't work out. So I've been single since, like, January. I've had no dates, no nothing. I'm alone all the time. It just gets to a point. It's like sometimes when you're alone so much, you just get to a point where you don't feel anything. And that's kind of where I'm at. It's like sometimes I'm like, I don't feel anything anymore. I used to feel God more. I used to feel like there was some more magic, but lately it's just been kind of like nothing. I don't know what it is. I guess I'm in a rut. But
Yeah.
I do think there should be some hanging around doing the whole let's feed off Jeffrey's love juice thing.
I think you'd have a few more symptoms than that.
Yeah, definitely.
So how do you get rid of these succubi? South Park, succubi. So what do you do to get rid of these things?
I have a ritual I use. That's very effective. It's kind of a combination between a binding, a cleansing, and an exorcism, and a cleansing. I use that. Sorry. It'll get rid of anything. In some cases, it's like using a sledgehammer to kill a cockroach. But it does work. And I happen to get it from the team in Houston that I work with occasionally. And it's been very effective. Very effective. It's my go-to thing now. If I can't talk them out or get them to leave on their own, I just pull out the big guns and be done with it.
So what is it you do again?
It's like a binding, cleansing, banishment, exorcism kind of ritual. It uses a lot. There's some Christianity in there. There's some Wiccan in there. There's some paganism in it. But it works, and that's all that matters to me is that it works. You know, first time I tried it, because James was nice enough to send it to me. I had a house that had a demon in it, and I said, okay, well, I'm gonna try this, and I was getting ready to start the ritual, and one of our team members, he had his ghost box on, and I walked past the ghost box, and this horrible voice comes out of it and said, "You're gonna die." And
I'm sorry.
When
they
funny.
say that, I always laugh.
It was funny because everyone kind of gasped, but I looked out of the box. I said, "Yeah, I am, but it isn't going to be tonight." And that was it. You know, game on. And it was the first time I used it, and I was amazed at how well it worked compared to some of the other things I've tried. And, I don't have their permission to disclose what that ritual is, so I can't. But it was given to me as a favor. And it's very effective.
I've had some good luck with Archangel Michael when I've used that and stuff.
This does involve Michael. It does involve.
Yeah, and any archangel stuff is usually pretty good. Are you familiar? I'm talking to Jeffrey now. Are you familiar with Michael Craig? You know Michael Craig, who did the ceremonial magic stuff. He's got a book. He's got a book called Modern Magic.
He passed.
Yes, I know he passed, but his books are still available.
He's been on the show, yeah.
Yeah, he wrote a book called Modern Magic, and in that book there are several rituals, all of which he kind of teaches you sequentially, and they're very simple. but they are the basics of a banishing ritual, a consecration ritual, and then there is actually an exorcism ritual in there.
Wow.
And they're very simple. I mean, they're like really, really simple ceremonial magic. It's like
this ritual actually is not hard. It's not a hard ritual to do. It has a lot of steps, but it's not hard to do. But it works, and when you do what we do, you just gotta go with what works.
Right.
Every time.
I mean,
I've
got a Sufi ritual that I do that I was taught that I've done very effectively, and it's very simple, and it's different than the ceremonial thing, but I know both of them, and so depending on the circumstances, you can do any of them.
Right.
So.
Right, and it also depends on what the people's beliefs are when I'm in. Sometimes I've used it when I didn't have to. Because I couldn't convince the people that what was in their house wasn't a demonic. And I still can't figure out why everyone thinks if their house is haunted, they automatically jump that say it's a demon. I haven't figured that out yet. And I knew after a while the only thing I could do to convince them that, this thing was gone was to pull out the ritual and do that, even though it was totally overkill for the spirit.
Right.
But I mean, it was a negative spirit, but it wasn't a inhuman. This person had once been in, a human body. The spirit had been in a human form at one time.
Right, and what you're speaking of when you're talking of demons are entities that have not been human.
Right, they become inhumans. Yes.
Right.
They have never been alive as a human on this planet.
But they are alive.
In their own way, they're as alive as any other spirit would be.
Mhm.
They're twice as powerful. More than that. That's why when people tell me what's going on in their house, they go, "I know it's a demon." And in my mind, I'm going, "No, if it was a demon, it'd be much worse."
So do they always target children as much as movies and stuff show it as?
No, not always. I've had one that targeted a teenager, but that teenager had some problems. They go after the weakest link. They're going to hit the weakest link. It's not always children. I've only had one case where they went after a child, but that child was a teenager. I always worry about the children being in a home, but I generally have them go after a teenager or an adult.
Have you ever had an experience where they've gone after animals or inanimate objects?
Inanimate objects, yes. Animals, no.
Okay.
We had one with a mirror. The only way to get rid of that, we got rid of the mirror. And it was made worse by the lady that owned the house and had the mirror, because she was one of those very nervous people, very high-strung, and she liked to etch mirrors.
Mm.
Yeah, so all she was doing was feeding all that energy into that mirror, and this thing was coming right back out at her. She kind of drew it in, unintentionally, of course, but she literally drew it in.
Wow.
And she didn't want to get rid of the mirror, and I said, well, there's your problem. And her husband finally grabbed the mirror and took it outside and smashed it into a million places, cleaned it all up, threw it in a box, took it somewhere out in the country, and that was it. Done. And it never came back.
Any doll situations ever?
No, I haven't run into a doll. I've run into haunted paintings and furniture and cufflinks, but those were all, none of them were inhuman spirits. They were all spirits that had been alive in some fashion at one time.
I got Sorry, I just remembered I need to do the call sign real quick.
Go ahead.
You're listening to United Public Radio, 107.7 FM, New Orleans. That's right, home of Joe Montaldo. So
we're getting used to doing that. So
we're going to go on break in a minute. Let me see. You just said, were you good for the whole show? We're going to do an 8-minute break, and then we got about 50 more minutes. Are you good for that, Debbie, or did you have a limit?
No, I'm good. Let's go.
Okay. All right. We'll break in 5 minutes. You got a link you want to give out to everybody?
They can find my team page on my team website is shadowstalkersparanormal.com, and we're on Facebook as shadowstalkersparanormal.com. Shadowstalkers Paranormal, I guess it is. One of the other teams I work with is Black River Paranormal. You can go to blackriverparanormal.com. And they're on Facebook as well.
What was your other book called? Is Your House Haunted?
Is Your House Haunted? How to Get Rid of Ghosts and Spirits. So you want to be a ghost hunter, Stalking Shadows, and Now Something Wicked.
All right, everybody. We'll be back in about 8 minutes. We'll be back with Debbie Chestnut, her book, Something Wicked, A Ghost Hunter Explores Negative Spirits. We'll be right back. All right, we're going to take 8 minutes. Just hang in.
Hi, come check out Christina George's new show, Aliens, UFOs, and Beyond, Thursday night, 8 p.m. See you Thursday, Jeff. Hi, I'm Joe Montaldo, and you're listening to United Public Radio. You want to learn about aliens, extraterrestrials, UFOs, visitations, military abductions? Join Joe Montaldo on Wednesday night. Come check out Christina George's new show, Paranormal Connections, only on United Public Radio, Monday, 8 to 10 p.m. See you Monday. Hello, you're listening to United Public Radio. I'm Joe Montaldo, host of News on the Flip Side. Check us out every Saturday night, 6 to 9 p.m. Central Time. Next Friday, July. I'm trying to get to my calendar, but my mouse is freezing. July
July 22nd, Gordon White, Chaos Magician. That's right, live from Britain, Chaos Magician. I don't really know anything much about Chaos Magician. I'm guessing they work with chaos, but I know Wham probably knows more about it than I do. I've heard of it.
Right.
I've heard the word on the street about Chaos Magicians. I've been in a few in the groups on Facebook. They're filled with like these weird egomaniacal hipsters. But this guy seems pretty cool. He's pretty well known. Rune Soup. So I'll be schooled on chaos magic. Gonna be a magic seminar on chaos magic.
Is that the one where Jay and I are both going to be on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jay is at the Star Trek thing now, so he comes back next week.
Okay.
I gotta remind me not to tell him to not bring up Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, he's off being a red shirt right now, so.
Yeah. He's Star Trek. But those should be pretty interesting for the chicks for sure. That's the only reason I go. I like Star Trek all right, but I'm not a fanatic. More of a Star Wars fanatic, but I don't hate Star Trek. But there's a lot of chicks at those things. Seriously. Dressed up like aliens and stuff, I'm all about that. All righty. We got you still with us, Debbie, making sure you didn't get hung up?
No, I'm here.
Yes, sir.
All right. Sometimes we accidentally drop people, or Skype does, for no apparent reason. But, so, what are some of the physical manifestations you've seen? Do most of these demons or ghosts, do they show themselves physically, or is that kind of a rarity? That's what also annoys me about all this ghost demon stuff. It's like, life's hard enough. Whoever designed the planet's going to put a bunch of invisible asshats here, too, with us. My God, come on, give us a break.
Yeah, I mean, they mostly stay out of sight. Out of the 3 or 4 demons I've actually encountered, I've only physically seen one. Spirits, they're a little more common, at least for me. I tend to see them more. The normal average person, no, you're probably not going to see it. And a lot of times if you do, you won't know what it is. You won't realize what it is. Some of them can appear quite real, which has led to some really embarrassing situations sometimes for me.
You mean demons or ghosts?
Ghosts.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, it's like
Out of demons, I've only really physically seen one.
Is that
Yeah,
real ballsy one that was
dead boy? Yeah. Yeah, that's.
It's just like, there's enough things going on in life. There's like invisible forces that are sabotaging us or trying to take our souls or whatever. It's just a bit annoying. I have a lot to say to the architect when I croak if I get to go before him. He's gonna hear a mouthful, let me tell you. I posted up an article before it's news just to get some conversation going, and it was this YouTube video that goes into the detail about how many people God kills in the Bible compared to the devil, how many the devil kills. The devil kills like one person in the Bible, like Lot's wife. God kills like 2 million or something, or more than that. I don't remember I'd have to look up the article. But that's a little weird to me. And then they got mad because I posted it. You should treat this energy more respectful. It's like it's a serial killer. It's just confusing, all this demon stuff. It's like life's hard enough. I got to worry about a demon messing with me.
People will never encounter one in a lifetime.
Yeah, most people aren't going to. I mean,
you got to remember, I hunt a lot, and you can't go out there and ghost hunt a lot and not expect at least to run into something negative at least once.
Oh, yeah.
The odds are against you.
And my experience is that most of the time, if people have half a bone of awareness, if they bump into something, like they're messing around in, like an abandoned house or something, and they come up, they'll leave.
Right.
You know, they don't. You know, if they have if they have any awareness and no stupidity, they just sort of automatically leave. You know.
Yeah, they're going to be out of there. You know, I mean, but you know, when you do what I do, you're going to run into them. It's just a matter of time. And what really matters is how you react to it when you do. That's what it comes down to.
So what would you advise people? You mentioned that a lot of times you get that probably more often than not you get people that think that they have demons in their house, but they're really ghosts or something like that.
Right.
Maybe it might be helpful for people to get kind of a rundown of how those two things will look different.
Well, like normally your run-of-the-mill ghost is gonna, maybe move some objects. Very fond of electricity. They're gonna turn on lights on and off, water on and off. You might hear footsteps. Objects might move. You might not see it, but objects will move. Objects might go missing and show up someplace, days, weeks, months, years later. They might turn the channel on the TV. Just little stuff like that. With a demonic, it's like a haunting on steroids. It's going to be more violent. You'll probably, you could be pushed, you could be scratched, you could be bitten, you might hear screams. It's a much more violent haunting. There's a huge difference, between a lot of it might be psychological. Demons are masters of psychological warfare. And, one of the first signs of a demon who's going to might start to eventually possess is when you're asleep, they're going to whisper in your ear. You may start having nightmares, horrible nightmares. You might wake up and you might have these thoughts in your head that aren't yours. Those are some of the psychological things that can happen. If you think there might be a negative entity, you need to figure out who it's targeting, and it's not hard. That person's behavior is going to change. They might do things they normally wouldn't do, say things they normally wouldn't say, probably always negative. If they don't swear a lot, they might start swearing. If they don't drink, they might start drinking. They might drink smoking. They might turn to drugs. In some cases, their voice will change. Their physical appearance might even start to change. Someone who's normally very easygoing might all of a sudden have a very short fuse for no apparent reason. Someone might become violent who's normally not violent. Those are all signs that person is being influenced by a demonic. Haunting-wise, you're going to know. There's going to be scratching on the walls. Your pets might start to act really weird, like refuse to go in a room, act very scared of something, take defensive postures. It's been my experience that with a demonic, they're usually going to get rid of the pets first.
And get rid of them, what does that mean?
They're going to kill them.
Okay, that's what I thought.
They either make them very sick or they're just going to out and out kill them. So anyone who thinks that they might have a demonic, first thing you need to do is remove those pets out of the house, get them to someplace safe. And, then go from there. Remember, a demon has to be accepted into your household. They might appear as a deceased spouse, loved one, friend. They might appear as a child. Who doesn't want to help a child, right?
Black-eyed children, have you heard of those?
I've heard of them. I've never seen one. I don't know that much about them, but I've heard of them.
Kind of a mystery, Ellie. And there's David Weatherly wrote a book on them, but still kind of a mystery as to what they are. A lot of people think demonic.
I don't think they're demonic. I mean, that would be like saying star children, indigo children, whatever. demonic, and I don't think that.
I don't either, for sure. I'm sure there are some people that do.
I mean, there's some people that think that because I can see and talk to ghosts that I'm talking to demons. You know, no, I know the difference. Trust me. You know, the energy is completely different. When I get around an energy that's that negative, that's inhuman, I get very nauseous. I get dizzy. I get physically ill. Around a normal ghost, even if it's a negative spirit, I don't have that reaction. And that's my radar.
So what do you think the afterlife's like? What's going on there for us when we croak?
I don't know. You know, I can't get a spirit to talk about it. You know, one of my guides, one of my helpers, I should say, from the other side is actually my father, and he won't even talk about it. And I don't know. You know, I'd like to picture it as, you know, my dad's up there with his buddies playing golf every day. You know, but who knows? I guess we'll find out.
Well, we've got a lot of people on that think it's positive. I don't know if that's true or not.
I can't imagine it not being.
Like, it's just positive. That's all it is. It's completely positive.
Well, I'd like to think that because, you know, there's enough drama when you're alive. Who needs that drama when you're dead, really? For eternity?
Well, and it's probably a lot of different things, you know.
I think it's a reflection. I think your afterlife is a reflection of how you lived your life. You know, did you live a good life? You're a good person.
Yeah, I would think so. I think part of it's creating your own reality.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a part of me that thinks it's probably so positive it's nauseating. Like, it's just so positive it's disgusting.
Oh, you would love it. Just stop it.
Yeah, go with it.
You wouldn't have to worry about not having a date, Jeffrey.
That's true. That's true.
It's completely like self-help world and God's Deepak Chopra.
I do know that they let go of all the stupid little petty things we worry about every day, all the grudges, all the petty little stuff that we'd go through when we're alive. I know they let go of all that. It's not important anymore. Unless, of course, you're an Avenger spirit, in which case that's your whole purpose.
That's what I was going to ask you. What's an Avenger spirit? Somebody that's been murdered and comes back to...
Not necessarily murdered. It could be someone who's dead, that felt that someone wronged them in life and they want revenge. And they will come back and they will make that person's life a living hell.
But that's still different than a demon.
It's still different than a demon because that spirit was alive in human form at one time.
Okay. Can such an Avenger spirit sort of resemble demonic spirits a little bit?
A lot of times they're just going to resemble what they look like in life. I don't see them as being shapeshifters. They're very dangerous. I mean, you know.
No, I mean, not resemble in terms of appearance, but in terms of what they will do to the person.
In some ways, yes, but they can never be as severe.
Okay.
Except in a couple ways. Like, for example, an Avenger spirit would be perfectly capable of pushing you out in front of a bus. And so would a demon. But a demon would prefer to put the idea in your head and have you voluntarily walk in front of the bus. There's the difference.
Or make you suicidal.
Or make you suicidal, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Whereas an Avenger spirit is just going to make your life a living hell for as long as they possibly can, because they want you to pay for what they think you did wrong to them when they were alive. You know, and it could be something as simple as a horrible, tragic car accident where, you know, someone died and it really wasn't the other person's fault. It was an accident. But to that Avenger spirit, in their mind, that person needs to pay for them dying. It could be something that's simple. It could be, like you said, a murder victim. It could be a parent whose child was murdered and they died, and they go after who they believe killed their child. It's very complicated.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's sometimes sort of it doesn't have to be like an ongoing family drama, but because it doesn't have to be family, but sort of a continuation of dramas that occur in our physical lives.
Kind of think of high school, but a little more drastic.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people who are in their 60s who never quite made it out of high school. So.
Oh, you mean emotionally?
Emotionally, yeah. So it'd be kind of like that, even if the Avenger Spirit's belief is irrational, it doesn't matter, because to them it's rational. It's like when you're dealing with an irrational person. You have to operate in their world, because to them it's rational. And the Avenger Spirit's the same way. What they're doing is perfectly rational and justified, even though it might be a totally irrational reason. So you kind of, like, what I do is, I try to get the Spirit to communicate with me, tell me what their deal is, what's wrong, why are you here, how can I help you, and I try to work out a compromise, between the living and the dead. I had one case where this lady had a spirit, and I went to her house, and I ended up in the middle of two ghosts, one was her mother, one was her deceased aunt, and they were fighting over what to do with her sister who was still alive. Their sister had a drug problem, and the lady who called me, she didn't want anything to do with her sister. The mother was arguing, it's your sister, you got to take care of her. The aunt was arguing no. And so I had two ghosts fighting with each other over what should be done with this living sister, and I had to kind of get things calmed down between them and then work out an agreement with the living sister and to get them to go. So that took a lot longer than expected.
Sounds like sort of a mediation.
It was. I mean, you have to, all the psychology courses I took in college really come into play. You have to kind of play psychologist sometimes, not only between the world of the living, but the world of the dead. You have to work out a compromise. Sometimes the spirit doesn't want to leave, and sometimes there's no reason to make it leave. So you have to work out an agreement with the living and the dead. You have to say, look, here's the deal. Don't go into the kids' rooms. Don't turn on the stove. Don't turn on the water. Don't flash the lights. You have to set ground rules like you do with a kid. And once they learn what the rules are, everybody's kind of happy. I mean, I know a couple right now that has a spirit in their house that's been there for years, and they coexist together perfectly happily on both sides. And they don't want me to get rid of that spirit. It's like, no, we want it here. Well, maybe the spirit wants to leave. Well, the spirit doesn't want to leave. They're happy there. What are you supposed to do? Why fix something that's not broken? So you just work out ground rules.
I just wonder what it's like for a spirit that stays behind in a house. I mean, it's not like they can watch. I mean, they can, watch TV or interact with anything material there, pull out one of their old DVDs or play Xbox or something. I'm just kind of curious to what the reality is. It must just be, like, completely boring if you're
No, it's very confusing for them, because a lot of the spirits that are behind in their house don't realize they've died. So they can actually get rather violent because there's, think about it. What if you're dead? You don't know you're dead. All your stuff is gone. There's strange people living in your house. No one can hear you. No one can talk to you. I mean, think about how frustrating that is for them. So actually there's been some very violent hauntings by a spirit, and it's just because they didn't know they were dead. They were trying to get attention, and they couldn't figure out who these strange people were and where all their stuff had gone. I've run into a couple of those. And once
and you have to explain it to them then.
You have to explain it to them. You just say, I don't want to be the one to tell you this, but I don't have a choice. You passed on.
I'm sorry if I'm dead and people start taking my PlayStation and Xbox and 55-inch TV and my horror sci-fi collection, I'm going to start swallowing some soul. Seriously. I'll swallow your soul. I'm starting to get it now.
So, a lot of times you're playing mediator. You're playing psychologist, between two worlds.
Well, I have a complete problem with death to begin with. I reject it, and whoever's the architect of it, I don't like them.
Well, life is fatal.
Yeah, so what's that's the point at all. If you just lose everything, come back and have to rebuild it, and then die and lose everything, come back and have to rebuild it. Yeah.
No, what happens if eventually you just don't come back? What happens if you ascend to a higher level? Is it worth it?
That would be good. I believe that's a possibility. I was told on the Ouija board I was Jeffery 777. Jeffery, a big part of future. I had some weird Ouija board stuff happen before. When my dad passed away, I was the one that had his ashes, and I brought him in my house, and we saw a dark spirit go down the hall. So me and some buddies got on a Ouija board, and it spelled out Blacktop Mountain. None of my friends had ever heard of Blacktop Mountain in their life that I knew of, especially not for me. And it turned out that was a place my dad took me when I was a kid, and in North Georgia in the mountains. So we decided to take the ashes up there and let them out over the hilltops there because we figured that's where he wanted his ashes. So we got lost, and we asked the board again which way to go, and it told us like left or right or whatever. And we ended up at the exact same place that I was at when me and him went there. So we pulled it out again. We put his ashes over the mountains and everything and pulled it out again, and it spelled out I love you. So I think at that point it was a positive thing with the board, but I know I've heard people having a lot of negative experiences. But shortly after my dad died when I saw a beam of light on the cloud tops appear. So I always just figured it was him maybe. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I definitely saw a person made out of light. Like it was, they had arms and legs, and it was just like a person made out of light standing on the cloud tops. So,
it could have been.
But definitely, what do you think about the Ouija board? Is it as dangerous as everybody thinks it is?
I think unless you know how to use it properly, it's very dangerous. Because what you're doing is you're opening a portal or a door to the other side, and there's no way to control what comes through. So anything, it's like leaving the door to your house open, when you're in northern Michigan in the spring when the bears are waking up from hibernation. Something's bound to wander across, and it might not be a squirrel.
Yeah, because it's going to be smelling the warmth and the food and everything. It's going to come right in.
Right. It's the same thing. You're opening a door. And good, bad, indifferent, it can all come through. And unless you know how to deal with it or control it, it can cause a lot of trouble. I can't tell you how many times I've been called out to houses that were perfectly fine until their teenage kids pulled out a Ouija board. And then they have to call someone like me to go clean up the mess.
When did they decide to mass product those things as like a children's toy? That's pretty
weird. It was in the late 19th century, and it was just a response to the growing popularity in spiritualism.
Right. It was a parlor game. It was a toy. Yeah. And I'm sure the makers didn't intend for what happened to happen, but it happened.
Well, and partly it's also the kind of belief that goes into that kind of stuff. I mean, a lot, some of it's intention. So if someone, has, sometimes when people are doing stuff like that, and I can only speak for myself because I've only ever used a Ouija board once, and it was a long time ago, and it was just out of curiosity we were doing it, and nothing terrible happened, but something did happen. It wasn't awful, but it felt very uncomfortable to me. And I think part of the reason that it did was because usually those are like mixed groups, And so you're going to get people that have very different intentions that are on them, and some of them are just doing it for play, and some of them kind of believe, and without a really clear intention about what you're doing with something like that, you can, like you said, just leave a door open. You don't mean to; it's just there.
Right.
And you can do that with anything. It doesn't have to be the Ouija board. It's just that the Ouija board, we've sort of culturally imbued it with that kind of, magical authority, if you will. And so when people set it down, they're sort of expecting something to happen, not wanting something to happen at the same time. All those things together, and that's like a perfect combination for really confusing things to happen.
Yeah, it's like a perfect storm.
Yeah.
But intent is everything. You have to have a clear intent. You have to have some type of protection in place before you start.
I mean, even Jane Roberts. I mean, you're probably familiar with her, who channeled Seth. She, they began with the Ouija board, among other things.
Right.
And they had some good results with the Ouija board, but they also had some really funky results with the Ouija board. And so they sort of, as they went, they kind of set parameters for themselves. And in fact, when people have asked me about the Ouija board, I've referred them to Jane Roberts' book, How to Develop ESP Powers, because she actually goes through what they did. And when certain types of events occurred, how they changed their intention and what their, she just basically sort of does a very step-by-step kind of thing. This is what we did, and when this happened, we were like, and they were very clear with different kinds of spirits who came through or different personalities that came through. If it was negative, if it was weird, they just stopped what they were doing. Just stop it, and cut it off.
Right.
And eventually, of course, over time, they were able to dispense with the Ouija board entirely, and just they never saw it as the, as they were just curious. They never saw it as like the goal.
Right. It was more of a catalyst.
Right. But they had some pretty clear intentions, and they did have to learn sort of, like you said at the very beginning, they had to make some mistakes and then go back and correct what they were doing as they were going. And so I think that in that case, it was a tool that worked for them fairly well, but
they were also very logical and methodical about it.
Exactly.
But you get a group of 15, 16, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old girls, it's not going to happen.
One, there's going to be all kinds of energy and hormones and drama.
Right. Yes. And that's when bad things can happen.
Yeah. All that drama.
All that drama.
Sexual energy and drama. There you go.
There you go. Those raging hormones. That's why the first thing I ask if people think they have a poltergeist is, do you have a teenager in the house?
Yeah. Yeah, and has it been your experience that sometimes what's going on in those situations, because I've heard this explanation too, is not necessarily that it's a specific kind of ghost or haunting or being, but that it might actually be a weird kind of manifested kinetic energy that is coming off of certain people?
I had one case like that with a teenager. And what I have all my clients do is, I usually schedule 2 or 3 weeks out, at least. Mm-hmm. And when they first contact me, I'm like, you need to keep a journal. I want to know everything that happens, anything paranormal that happens. I want to know who was there, what time, what was the weather, what was going on, who witnessed it. I have a whole bunch of questions for them that for every event they need to write down. And they're very good about keeping that journal. And then about 3 days before I go out, I have them send it to me. And I go through it. And I can generally tell if everything that's happening is happening when the teenager's home or in the room, 9 times out of 10, you're dealing with that kinetic energy.
Mhm.
If the teenager's not there, you're not. So, or not there the majority of the time.
Right.
Then you probably got a spirit that you're dealing with, just focusing on that teenager.
Mhm.
And I've had that happen a couple times where the teenager wasn't doing anything. It was just the spirit that was attracted to the young energy. And so that's how I kind of handle my cases. I want a journal, if possible. I mean, sometimes it's not, because sometimes there's kids involved, and, you got a haunting, and the kids are scared, and you don't bother with that. You just get out there as soon as you can.
Right.
Cases with kids take priority over anything else with me.
I got to do the call sign real quick. You're listening to United Public Radio, 107.7 FM, New Orleans. So you say there's been some teenager-type cases. They get attracted to teenagers as well?
It's young energy. They're lively. They're not attracted in a bad way. The spirit was probably going to be in the house anyway. They just tend to focus on the teenager because of the energy and because they're soft-hearted, depending on the spirit. Sometimes it's as simple as a deceased grandparent watching out for that child. They're just not doing it in a good way because they just haven't figured out how to do that without scaring the kid and the family. My daughter-in-law's sister, there's a spirit in their house. No matter where they move, that spirit's always going to be there because it's her husband's grandmother, and she's watching over the kids. And, it scares them sometimes, but I'm like, this spirit's here to protect you. It's not going to hurt you. And it calms them down because there are spirits that do come back and they protect. They'll protect a kid or a family or a person. And they might not go about it in the right way, but they're going about it in the only way they know how. At least that's been my experience.
So do you work in the Houston area, right?
No, I'm in Michigan actually.
You're in Michigan, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you just work within your area, or do you go other places?
It depends on the case. If there's a really interesting case, oh yeah, I'm going. I don't travel a lot, but if it's a really interesting case, I'm going to go. Like there's 2 cases in Iowa right now that, I'm going to get out there probably this fall for a week, and one I'm just dying of curiosity. The spirits are harmless, but I'm just dying, well, not really, depending on who you talk to, but it's a case of the 5 horsemen, and it's a virgin haunt. No one's ever hunted it, and I'm just dying to get out there. The legend is that back in the Wild West, there were these 5 horsemen. They were not very nice people, according to legend, and allegedly they killed a family, and a posse was formed with 6 men from one town and 6 men from another, and they hunted down and killed the horsemen. And ever since then, the legend states that when the horsemen ride, people die. And a year after they were hunted down, the one town burned to the ground. The other town's still in existence. And there's not very many people there because the horsemen do ride through town, and it freaks people out. And so I said, okay, let's test that. So I got a hold of the cemetery records and charted out who died in what year, how many people died per year for as long as that cemetery's been in existence. And then one of my friends lives out there. Her parents actually live in this town. So we knew what years the horsemen were riding. And we looked at the number of deaths for the years we knew the horsemen were riding. And the deaths did increase. by about 4 or 5 more deaths a year. And what we noticed was that for the years the horsemen rode, a lot of the people that died were direct descendants of the 12 men from the posse. So,
interesting.
Yeah, the question is, are the horsemen hunting these people down, or are they residual energy? You know, we know what triggers them. There's a marshy area out there in a park, and way back in the marsh are these 5 unmarked headstones, and we think that's where they're buried, and that seems to be the trigger. So the plan is to go out there, wade through the swamp, find out where these things are, try to trigger them to ride, and then see if they're residual or intelligent.
Well, that might be interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to come up with a better plan because, my friend's like, well, what's the plan? I said, well, we're going to trigger them, and then I'm going to stand in front of them. If they ride around me, they're intelligent. If they ride through me, they're residual. And she's like, well, that's probably not a good plan. I said, well, probably not, but it's the only one I have, so I'm open to suggestions,
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah,
well, I'm not going to make a member of my team do something I'm not willing to do myself.
Well, right, exactly. I understand that.
Even though one of the guys on our team, the spirits seem to love him, and they sneak up behind him and scare the crap out of him all the time. So I always send him in first. And for Christmas one year, I got him a T-shirt that just said "bait," and
So have you ever come across any weird alien stuff doing any of this UFO stuff?
No, not that I can remember. No.
I'm just wondering if any of the demon stuff's ever tied in with any of that.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I saw a UFO once. It was totally unrelated to any paranormal thing I was working on or a paranormal event. It just was.
Because back in like the olden golden days, I thought demon meant interstellar traveler, didn't it? And what's the roots of that? Wham, do you know?
No. The word demon actually comes from. It comes from the Indo-European root that actually is connected to the essence of it's. It was understood to be kind of like the connection between your soul and the divine. So so in Greek, the actual word demon comes from daemon in Greek, and it refers to that. I mean, it manifests in different ways. Like it can manifest as that little voice in your head that tells you to do good or bad things. You know what I mean? So I mean that's the root of it. But there were other related words like deva, for example, which is another Indo-European word, which is where we get the term devil. And devas could be all kinds of things. They could be spirits of the earth or spirits of the sky, or
Yeah, and some of the church history. Some people believe that demons were made up by the Catholic Church to keep people in line, scare them so they'd follow the church rules and not deviate from that.
And I mean, it's like, the whole issue of demonology, or the whole sort of study of demonology, that's something that evolved in the Catholic Church over time.
Right.
And a lot of that was borrowed from other places,
mm-hmm.
And then reinterpreted.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's, I've been doing this for 30 years, and it never gets old.
I'm sure.
Each case is different, a little different. Every place you go, you learn something new. So it's kind of fun.
I'm trying to find the guy I had on from Eurasia that said God has forgiven all the demons and fallen angels now, and they're at service and helping mankind.
Well, maybe he will. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
we did. Some of them you never. I mean, how does anybody really know? Maybe.
Well, that's I mean,
meeting.
all we have are a bunch of good opinions and questions about this stuff. We really don't know exactly what it's for.
And that's why we do what we do.
Timothy Wiley, that's who it is. I know Timothy. His name slipped my brain.
I mean, all I know is that for in my life, dealing with non-physical entities with sort of a basic courtesy has probably been the most helpful thing. I mean, or firmness, if that's what's required.
Right.
But, you know.
But you always treat them with respect until they give you a reason not to.
Right.
You know, and usually that works. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It's like with anything else, but it's like with people, too.
Exactly. So I was going to say, it's just like people. So as we're getting close to the end here, getting towards the end, what can you give us a quick rundown of what your favorite case was? I mean, maybe the Horseman case will be your favorite. But,
my favorite case, actually, oh, wow. My favorite one. Gosh, I've had so many that I really like, you know?
Right. Just pick a really cool one.
One of my favorite cases, actually, was something I'd never seen before. And I had a spirit named Jake, and he was trapped in an antique mirror. And maybe your Chaos Magic guy next weekend can explain how he got there, because I have no clue. And we went in this house. It was apartment building, actually. And the young man who lived there, stuff was being thrown around his room, trophies being thrown off, shelves being ripped out of the wall. And when he'd moved in, there'd been this antique mirror. It was a big pedestal mirror, it was a floor mirror. And the landlord had said, whatever you do, you can't get rid of this mirror. So I kind of narrowed it down and figured out that there was a spirit in the mirror. And I said, I asked him if he was trapped, and he said yes. And he said, please help me, please get me out. He goes, I don't want to hurt anybody. I'm just desperate. I didn't mean to upset anyone that lived here. I'm desperate. And I said, no problem, I'll help you. So I called, my partner was actually in taping all this, so I'm like, hey, James, I need to talk to you in the other room. We go in the other room, and he said, what do we do? And I said, well, I'm going to put my hands on the mirror. I'm going to draw the spirit out through me, have him follow my energy. He's going to come into me, leave me, and go into the light. And James said, well, I don't really like that plan. And I said, well, you know what? I don't either. And he's like, what's plan B? I'm like, there is no plan B. This is all I have. I have never seen this before. And that's what I did. I had him come through me and go right into the light. And that was probably one of my favorite cases, actually, because it was just so cool. It was so unusual. How often do you find that? And I just haven't figured out how I got trapped in the mirror.
Well, did you feel him go through you then?
I did feel him go through me. I felt his energy come through me, and he left immediately. He came out of me. He said thank you, and then he was gone. He was right into the light.
Oh, that's great.
All right, ladies, we got to close out. I'm getting the back symbol from Joe. You're listening to United Public Radio, 107.7 FM New Orleans. And Debbie, what's your websites again? And then we're going to close out. Appreciate you doing the show.
Shadowstalkers. Paranormal.com, Shadowstalkers on Facebook, Paranormal Realm on Facebook is my personal fan page, and BlackRiverParanormal.com. They're another team I work with.
All right. Well, we appreciate you doing the show. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And be careful with those riders.
I will.
All righty. Thank you.
All right.
All right, everybody.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.